Hi guys, my name is Laura. I'm a DOP, also known as a director of photography, and we're here today at London Terrarium testing out some new Samyang V-AF Cine lenses. So today we've been given 3 lenses and 1 adapter to test today, and we're going to be testing on the Sony FX6, which is a lovely little camera. We have been given a 24, a 35, and a 75. So that's a pretty decent range. We would normally have, say, a 50 or an 18 in here, but it'll be able to help us test on a long lens versus a wider lens. We've also been given this, which is called a V to AF manual focus adapter, and this can fit on the front of each of these lenses. And I'm going to guess that this is to really help its sort of versatility, where you can go from a small compact set to a slightly bigger cine set. Another feature we'll be testing is the autofocus feature. We'll be seeing how reactive it is on the FX6. So we've got the 24mm on at the moment, and we're just going to see how this looks on one of the wider lenses. What I'm going to have a look at is the feature where I can do manual iris here on the rings, and then you can switch to what's listed as M1, where I can control it here on the FX6. I'm just going to see if there's any difference and see how responsive it is. I'm also going to have a quick look at the autofocus by pointing through these glass jars full of plants, basically. So this seems to be pretty responsive when it comes to its autofocus. Obviously I can speed it up and I can pick where on the screen just by tapping what I want in focus, but it seems to be quite smooth. There doesn't seem to be much difficulty finding what it needs to focus on. The lens itself, it seems pretty clean. There's not any majorly strange characteristics. It's not like a Helios where there's flare coming in. It seems to be quite flattering, you know. I mean, at the moment we're looking at objects. We're not looking at any skin tones or faces yet, but it seems to be representing what I'm seeing in real life quite well. So far, quite impressed with how it is. The what I've also been testing here is the aperture, where we're going from adjusting it via the ring on the front of the lens or via the camera itself. And it seems to be quite responsive both ways. I think the one thing that I would do all the time probably is just get confused as to which setting I was on. So I just need to have it in my brain that M2, I was right, M2 means that the iris is controlled from the wheel now, which is very responsive. I'm not going to go mad, but it seems to be doing it quite precisely and through correct increments as well. Then going to M1 and adjusting this on the wheel on the camera, no difference between response time. Seems to all be reacting the same. So far, so good for the 24mm and on the Samyang. This, by the way, this opens up to, it says 1.9 on the lens. On my camera it's saying 1.8. That's probably just an FX6 programming thing. There might not be a 1.9 thing. But on here it's saying T 1.9 and here it's saying 1.8. So what we're going to try and do now is we're actually going to test how this lens reacts to faces. So we have Talia, who's very kindly decided to stand in for us. And we're going to see how this lens reacts on, you know, in terms of just face shape and to see if there's any kind of warping. And we're going to see how Talia's face looks on the 24 versus the 35 versus the 75, just to see how it ranges. All right, so we're going to start just you looking straight down the lens for me. Cool. Great, and exhale, relax. Good. And now if you can look this way for me, and looking back this way, and towards camera, and glasses off for me, and glasses back on. And if you can lean in slightly to camera, good to test the autofocus, and leaning back. Cut there. Okay, so autofocus had some mild confusion there, but that might have been because of setting. We'll give it a chance. Okay, that's really good to see. So now we've moved on to the 35. We're going to do another test to see how her face looks. And 35s are already naturally going to be a bit more flattering to faces. And we're also going to see how this autofocus reacts on this lens instead. So far, this one seems to be getting her eyes a lot easier than the 24. Again, this might just be down to the settings of the camera, but it immediately picked up her eyes when the 24 was struggling between her glasses, her eyes, and her fringe. So that's a good feature to know. For those of you who'd be shooting on a 24 for faces, you'd probably be looking for a different look anyway. You might be closer than I was, so there's not to say the autofocus won't kick in, but it's good to see that this seems to be reacting a little bit better. The fall off in the background when it comes to focus is very nice. We're in daylight, so I can't check for bokeh or anything like that, or bokeh, however you want to pronounce it, but we might be able to do a test on that a bit later. So let's have a look. Straight down the lens, please. And exhale. And let's have you looking this way. And looking this way. And back to camera. Let's go glasses off. Let's see if that focus stays. It did. That's good news. Well done. And now we can do the rocking tests. Let's lean slightly further back. And forward. Let's stay there for a second. Very good. And if you can lean back to sort of the furthest position you were back and just hold that position for about 4 seconds. Let's stay there. And now you can relax and sit normally. Okay, that was good. So what I would say is it's a lot more flattering on her face. I would definitely prefer to use this lens if I was doing any kind of portrait work when it came to video. So what I was seeing here was that the camera setting was correct, and it was very much trying to keep her eye in focus. The lens was struggling a little bit. It would be between 1 and 2 seconds before it would settle on her eye. So I've seen more reactive and faster autofocus systems. It's not bad because it is consistently trying to follow the same point. Whereas other lenses, it'll go to the background, it'll go to the foreground, and then it'll find the eye. This one was just a bit slower and a bit more gradual at getting to its focus point. But in terms of the actual look of the lens, it's very nice, it's very clean, no complaints really. So now we've moved on to the 75. And this one is definitely going to be very flattering on faces. It's a much longer lens, which means that the drop-off is going to be a lot shallower. It's going to be very shallow kind of depth of field, even if we stop down compared to, say, a 24. And what I'll do here is we'll see how reactive, once again, the autofocus is. We'll see how it looks. And at the moment, it's looking very nice, to be honest with you. Fall off in the background, the focus is looking really good. And let's see how the autofocus reacts. Okay, so Talia, you're going to look at the lens for me and exhale. Very good. And let's look this way. And let's look that way. And back to camera. Let's go glasses off. Glasses back on. Great. And we're going to do our leaning game now. You can lean back and stay there for a few seconds. And come forward. And back to normal. That's normal. Ah, who knew? And stay there for a bit. Oh wow, it's really struggling this time, isn't it? Wow, that's not even focused. It's completely lost it. And look up there. So that test there on autofocus on the 75 wasn't quite as successful as it was on the other two lenses. It actually got to a point where when she leaned back, it didn't find the focus at all at one point. Now this may just be because of a tuning issue with the lens. It might be down to how we've set the camera up, and it's something to look into. But in terms of when the focus does hit, it does look very nice, very flattering. So now we've got the 35mm lens on, we are just going to be panning and tilting along, seeing how the autofocus reacts on still life objects. So we're now going to be filming a slightly more documentary sort of environment thing, and we're on the 24mm lens to start with. We're going to watch Emma building a terrarium, which I hadn't heard of before, so this is going to be fun. We'll start on a 24, because generally on a documentary you'd probably get a master wide of some sort, so it's really good to test that. Then we'll move to tighter lens, probably just 75, to see the detail, because the terrarium, it's like a small world in a glass jar. Another good thing I'm noticing now on the autofocus is even though I'm not moving and the object isn't moving, the dirt, moving a tiny bit, the focus racks forward and it racks back again, trying to find some kind of focus. So it's actually quite interesting seeing this. So those were our tests of the 24, 35 and 75mm Samyang lenses. What I found was that the autofocus is a little bit hit and miss, but the manual focus is very, very clean and very, very easy to use. I would say easier to use than some Canon lenses that I've worked with. The look overall, I wasn't able to test flares today or certain other things that I would usually test, but on faces it's quite flattering and the look is quite clean. Overall, things I would say would be useful would be having a 50mm lens in this set, as well as an 18mm if this wanted to be a full set. Another helpful feature, given that these are hybrid Cine lenses, is that you will be able to switch from either controlling your iris in camera or on the lens using the ring. Overall, I think these lenses are definitely worth looking into, and feel free to test and have a look yourselves.